Hey guys, I'm Jeffrey here, and I'm back on Dying Light. Now, I have noticed that a lot of times there hasn't been a really good guide video towards PvP, specifically for the survivors though, because, and I can understand why, because like not a lot of people play this game anymore. But I thought, you know what? Why not just make my own guide, a up-to-date guide for survivors, especially the new survivors. So I'm here with my friend right here, and we're gonna show you guys 20 tips and tricks involving the humans, not the hunter, the humans. All right. So the first tip that I'm gonna show you guys is survivor sense and vigilance. Now, a lot of times players have a hard time finding out where the night hunter is. However, there is actually a way you can tell he's approaching you. When the night hunter gets closer, you'll start hearing music, and Crane will speak something. So he's gonna be here any second now. You can hear the music start changing, and you see he's right there.
Watch for movement.
You hear that? And if you still don't have a sense of where he is, what you want to do is, if you're on keyboard and mouse, you can hit Q, or if you're using a controller, you either hit A or X, and when you do that, you'll pulse, and you'll find him. You'll find him that easily. You'll pulse. He'll get ping on the map, and you'll also see him. You'll see like an orange like circle appears around him. So that's survivor sense and vigilance. Now the next tip I'm gonna show you guys is the UV light and flares. Now your UV light is the only defense that you have against the night hunter, because as you can see, do you see at the top of the screen? You see you see the bar below his health with the one that has the teeth coming out. That's his stamina bar. And when you shine your UV light at him, it drains his stamina slightly. And if you drain it all the way, he runs significantly slower and he cannot use his tendrils or his grappling hook. Basically his zombified grappling hook, also known as tendrils. Now you gotta be careful though, because the UV light does only have a limited battery, as you can see in the bottom left there. And when that UV light runs out, you'll have no defense. You'll have no defense against the hunter, and he can easily pounce you right here. So if you do have the UV light though, you can interrupt his pounce. You have a split second before you can interrupt his pounce right here. Before the pounce locks in. And you have to make sure that your sensitivity is high enough so that Crane can turn around fast enough to interrupt the pounce. As you saw right there. Now, here's the thing though. When your UV light does run out though, you do have UV flares as your other defense against the hunter. Now, you gotta keep in mind though that these flares, they only have a limited range around here. And also, they have a limited lifetime, obviously. But you gotta be... Yeah, they also drain the Night Hunter's energy the same. But you gotta be careful, though, because the animation takes so long before the UV light actually comes out of the flare. What you want to do is, instead of doing that, you want to run, look behind you, then drop the flare. Because that's instantaneously, rather than having to wait for the whole animation to throw it. Now, the last piece of advice when it comes to the UV light is do not, under any circumstances, flicker the light. Like, even if you're just doing it like this, that actually drains the light faster than as if you were holding it down. And not only that, it drains the hunter's stamina a lot slower. So as you can see, you see how slow that's going? But if I flicker it, look how quickly it drains. So yeah, you don't want to be doing that, because that's just wasting the UV light. Now the next piece of advice we're gonna have is the grappling hook. Now the grappling hook has a lot of uses. It's behind the UV light. It's a great tool that you can use in PvP and for the right reasons too, because it allows you to get up to heights that normally take forever to climb up to. And not only that, it also allows you to negate fall damage if you're fat. And this is another thing that a lot of players don't know, is that you can actually cancel the grappling hook. All you have to do is, while you're grappling, you hit the crouch button, and you'll cancel the grappling hook. Now, this actually there's a lot more to this than people might think. So the first thing that you can do with it is be able to evade tackles. However, not just regular tackles. What I mean is tackles where you cannot dodge, like midair, for example. As you saw there, I could not dodge that tackle because I was in midair. However, you can dodge the tackle once you cancel the grappling hook. For example, you see, I should not have been able to evade that tackle, but I did. So when you're in midair, make sure that you perform a grapple cancel while in the air to be able to evade their tackle. Another good tool for grapple canceling is be able to drop flares quicker. Now, I mentioned earlier that you shouldn't use the whole try to throw the flare, wait for the whole animation before the flare actually works. It's better to look behind you while doing it. However, you cannot do that while in midair. What you want to do is, when you perform a grapple cancel, you can look behind you, like so. Now, the last tool that the grapple canceling can do is be able to interrupt animations. For example, the swing of the two-handed weapon takes so long to do. However, if you grapple cancel, you instantly stop the animation. And even a dropkick can be stopped immediately with a grapple cancel. Now, the next step I'm going to be talking about is melee weapons. The melee weapons are the most effective way to damage the Night Hunter. There's 3 different types of melee weapons. We got the knives, the swords, the blunt weapons, and we got two-handed weapons. Now, a one-handed weapon does about 1/3 of the Night Hunter's health in a 1v1. Keep in mind, because the Hunter does gain more health, more resistance during when more players are present. But however, this is a case of a 1v1. A one-handed weapon does this much damage. And by that logic, it takes 3 swings to kill the Night Hunter in a 1v1. Now, a two-handed weapon does this much damage to a Hunter in 1v1. That's a lot of damage. Another effective strategy is being able to throw your melee weapon at them. Now, normally, the risk of losing your weapon is pretty high. However, if you manage to hit the Night Hunter, it does slightly more damage than a two-handed weapon swing. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Now, you can also throw your two-handed weapon. In a 1v1, or in a 1v2, it's a one-shot kill every time. Now, the next tip on the list is going to be ranged weapons. Now, there are a variety of different ranged weapons you can use, from the crossbow to just straight-up guns. Now, these are more effective of being a finishing damage rather than it being starting damage. For example, if I were to shoot the Night Hunter here, that's very little damage compared to a melee weapon. So you do not want to have to use it to start your damage off. What you want to do is try to get the Hunter low enough so that you can follow up with a ranged attack. So again, do not try to use these as your starting damage. Again, it's better to try to finish off the Hunter with it rather than having to use it as your primary way to damage it. And it's good to also have at least one of these, whether you have just two-handed weapon and a one-handed and just one gun, or just one crossbow and have an extra for something else. That's fine too, but it's good to have at least one. Now, the next tip is going to be evading tackles and ground pounds. Now, we're going to start with the tackle. Now, the tackle is arguably the most versatile tool or ability that the Night Hunter can perform. You cannot dodge a tackle, though, when you're looking away from the Night Hunter. So yeah, you must be facing the Hunter at all times if you want to be able to evade his tackle, like so. And that begs the question, do I have to be specifically jumping in order to evade them? No, you can just dodge. You can dodge sideways or backwards, and that'll still evade the tackle, like so. For example, you saw I didn't jump there, I just dodged. Now, once again, you want to be able to utilize the grapple canceling in order to dodge tackles in midair, whether you're on the 2 feet off the ground or if you're getting knocked off a building, because getting tackled off of a building is an insta-kill almost every time, or just put you in a really bad spot. Another ability the hunter can do is be able to ground pound. You'll know that he's performing a ground pound when he raises his arms up and he does a vicious growl. Getting hit by the ground pound can allow the hunter to easily follow up with any other move, such as spitting on you or a tackle. For example, so as you can see, that did a decent amount of damage, but it's not about the damage. It's about the position it puts you in. It puts you in a really good spot for the hunter to be able to do a spit on you, a spit stick on you, or follow up with a tackle if you're on top of a building. So what you want to do is, when you know he's about to perform a ground pound, what you want to do is dodge at least once, and that's enough to dodge a ground pound. Now the next tip I'm going to be talking about is the spits. Now the hunter has 4 different types of spits. There's Horde, UV, Concussive, and Acid. However, in this video I'm only mainly going to be talking about Horde spit and the UV spit. And the reason why is because you'll be seeing those more common than you would a Concussive and an Acid spit. Now the first spit is the Horde spit. Getting hit by the Horde spit would call in a horde of suicide bombers. Those guys will one-hit kill you, or they will do a ton of damage to you. And a great way to avoid it is to get onto rooftops. So for example, I got hit by the Horde spit here, and I have to get to a rooftop as quickly as you can, because while these guys are very deadly, they cannot climb buildings, they cannot climb at all. So as long as you're in an elevated surface that they cannot climb onto, like a slab for example, they won't be able to get you. However, as you saw right there how much damage that bomber did, that did a ton of damage to me. If it weren't for that rooftop, I would have died right there. Now the other spit is the UV spit, which is another self-explanatory. It just disables your UV light. And while as your screen is purple, you won't be able to use the UV light. You can still, however, use your UV flares to stay safe from the Night Hunter. Now the next tip I'm going to be talking about is the Dropkick. Now the Dropkick is an animation move. In other words, when you perform it on the Night Hunter, like normally if you were to perform it on a regular zombie, it would just be like an attack. However, when doing it on the Night Hunter, it instead triggers an animation. Now the Dropkick has many properties, one of which, this is one of the most common ways to use it, is to perform animation combos. For example, say there's an explosive behind the Night Hunter. What you could do is perform a Dropkick and follow up by shooting the explosive to do a ton of damage to the Night Hunter. Another effective way to use the Dropkick is to cancel ground pounds. For example, when you know that the hunter is about to perform a ground pound, you can drop kick him out of the animation. However, you have to be very careful when you're using the drop kick, because while it is a pretty cool move to perform on the hunter, it can be punished very severely. For example, if I'm in a situation where I drop kick the hunter into a wall, he can easily spit me with the UV spit, and I won't be able to do anything against his pounce. Now the next tip I'm going to be talking about is Death from Above, or DFA for short. Now DFA is, to perform it, you have to hold the charge button or the attack button on your controller or keyboard and mouse, and jump on top of the hunter to perform a DFA. And the DFA is a one-shot kill every single time on the hunter. While the DFA is a really devastating move, it does have requirements. For example, you have to be charging your weapon to be able to perform it, and you also have to be above 8 meters above the hunter in order to perform a DFA. As you can see right here, a DFA should have landed there, but because I'm not above 8 meters, I did not perform a DFA. While it is really great to perform a DFA, there is a risk to it though. For example, there are 2 ways the hunter can counter the DFA, one of which is by tackling you out of the air. As you saw, the DFA should have been performed there, but because he was he was running and looking straight up, he was able to tackle me out of it. Now the second way the hunter can counter the DFA is by pouncing you out of the air. While it is a really badass move to be able to pull off on the hunter, it's still 9 times out of 10 though, you'll be killing the hunter just by swinging him, slicing him, rather than performing a DFA on him. Now the next move that the humans can do is tackling. Now the hunter has his own tackle, but the humans also have their tackles too. Now this tackle is one of the best moves in the game for the humans, and for the right reason too. The first good thing about the tackle is that not only does it deal damage to the hunter, it also knocks him back. While this may not seem like much, it has a great potential of being able to mess up the hunter's combo or movement. For example, when you're put in a situation where the hunter is tendriling towards you, or when he's running towards you, you can tackle him to prevent him from being able to follow up with another tendril or spit. For example, as you saw, like that, instead of him going past me, he actually stopped in front of me because I interrupted his tendril by tackling him. Another great tool for the tackle is being able to follow up with slices. Now, this is a really great way of being able to deal damage to the hunter, because when not only are you able to perform the tackle, you can also follow up with a slice with it. So if you hit the hunter with the tackle, you can immediately begin slicing him. As you saw, that did a ton of damage to him with just one slice and a tackle. And the last thing that the tackle is really great for is being able to finish off the hunter. Now, normally you can just slice him 3 times and he's dead. However, if you're put in a situation where you can't kill the hunter with just a slice, all you can do is just tackle him because it's instantaneously.
Let's get out of here.
Next, I'm going to be talking about the boosters. Now, these things the name says it all. It basically gives you helpful buffs that would assist you against fighting the hunter. For example, the speed booster its name says it all, it gives you speed. However, unlike the Night Hunter booster, which gives you all the effects, the speed booster actually gives you the longest amount of time of extra speed, and it gives you 15% of speed boost, while the Night Hunter booster gives you 10%. The stamina booster actually does a lot more than just give you infinite stamina. It actually allows you to tackle quicker, because normally when you tackle, there's a cooldown before you can do another tackle. However, with this one, it completely cancels out the cooldown of the tackle, which makes it a very effective nest killer booster. Now, the Night Hunter booster, while it isn't as good, the speed of it isn't as good as the speed booster. It's one of the really good things about this Night Hunter booster is resisting claw damage. Now keep in mind, this will only work on the claw that attack that the hunter does, not the tackle, not the ground pound, not the pounce. It only works on the claw. Now, this is the amount of damage I take without the Night Hunter booster. Now, with the Night Hunter booster, this is how much claw damage I take. You see the difference? It's a little bit less, but it can make a big difference between life and death. Now, the next tip I'm going to be talking about is the throwing stars. Now, normally, using throwing stars against the Night Hunter isn't the most effective tool, because due to the hunter being able to move around very fast, while it does a decent amount of damage to the hunter, actually it does a lot more damage than I thought it would do to the hunter, it still isn't as effective as just slicing him normally. However, it is a fantastic tool for getting rid of nests. The most effective throwing stars so far are the freezing and the burning ones. However, the throwing stars also have a cooldown on them. In single player, you can throw up to 4. Before it goes into a very long cooldown. Now, the next step I'm going to be talking about is backups. Now, if you're a Van Crane player like like I am, or you're just a player who doesn't throw their weapon a lot, or doesn't use guns a lot, then this doesn't apply to you. However, to the players that it does apply to, you must always have backups with you, like a backup one-handed weapon, or backup two-handed weapons, or backup guns if you're a type of player that uses a lot of guns, because you cannot craft ammo, but you can craft bolts, but you also cannot craft one-handed weapons. So it's better to have backups for them, so that you can replace them when you lose them 9 times out of 10 when you throw your weapon, or when you run out of ammo, you can easily replace it with a different gun, such as a pistol from a rifle, or vice versa. Now the next tip I'm going to be talking about is inventory placement. Now this will actually come to you naturally, but the placement in your inventory really matters, because when it comes down to having your items selected, that's only the icing on the cake. The real the filling for it is having muscle memory, being able to switch between your weapons and your items. So when you're in a situation where the hunter is above you, you can perform a grappling hook and go up there to him. However, you won't have your light out, but you can actually have your UV light switch to your UV mid grappling and be able to shine if the hunter happens to be up here. And having the muscle memory to be able to switch between your grappling hook and your light, so that you're not put in a situation where you can be pounced easily, it really will help you in the long run. So try to practice grappling onto a building while simultaneously switching to your light and shining it upwards, so that you can prevent the hunter from cheesing you by pouncing you in your blind spot. Because this, being able to grapple it up to a roof and then shine your light afterwards, 9 times out of 10, you will shine the hunter to prevent him from getting you in your blind spot. Or if I'm put in a situation where I accidentally dodge off of the roof, or the hunter happens to ground pound me off the roof, all I have to do is press left on D-pad, and I immediately switch to my grappling hook, and then I use the muscle memory that I developed to switch back to my UV light, which I know is on the top of my weapon wheel. When I hold left on D-pad, I can freely pick whichever I want. And that's why I have the light upwards. Like, most players actually have it downwards. Me, I personally like to have it upwards, because that's the muscle memory that I've developed, is to switch upwards to switch to my light quickly. And what I mean by placement is that, for example, when I am a controller player, so for people who don't know, I actually use the D-pads to switch between weapons. So if I press left on D-pad, it cycles to the next weapon that's clockwise on the weapon wheel. And same thing with right on D-pad, it swaps clockwise. And the reason why I have it this way is because if I evade the hunter's tackle, I can easily quickly switch to my two-handed weapon to be able to hit them after I evade the tackle. Now the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is the environment. Now you want to always try to pay attention to what's around you and your surroundings, because if you're not careful, it could cost you. So as you saw over there, I got killed instantly because I was standing behind spikes and I got knocked into it by the ground pound. So you want to be careful when you're around spikes, because these things will kill you instantly if you're not careful. But they can also be your best friend, because you can also get the hunter into spikes. The first way is by dropkicking. Evading tackles puts him into spikes as well. And lastly, interrupting pounces would also put him into spikes.
Did we get it?
However, just because these spikes work does not mean that all spikes around the map would also work. For example, spikes like these do not work on the hunter. But spikes like this one, for example, they work, besides the pole. Another thing that you need to watch for is explosive barrels and explosive propane tanks. You'll know that if they're explosives if they're bright red, such as this barrel over here. Because this thing is an amazing tool against the Night Hunter due to its high damage. And also keep in mind, throwing your weapon also triggers explosives. Using rooftops is a great way to get to the nests, and that's the last piece of advice when it comes to the environment tip. You should utilize the rooftops in order to get to the nest as quickly as possible. However, you must be careful when the hunter is alive and near you, because he can very easily tackle you off the building and kill you instantly. Now the next tip is going to be teamwork. Now, since I'm alone, I will just be explaining this rather than having to demonstrate this. So, while you are alone, the Night Hunter actually gains a boost for every player that's in your lobby. So, his damage resistance, instead of it bringing down to that much health, it would actually be reduced for every player that's in your lobby. So in other words, you cannot just simply tackle and then follow up with a heavy and kill the hunter instantly in a 1v2. That won't work. So it's going to take a lot of teamwork in order to kill the hunter when you have more than one person with you. Now that brings up to the next advice that involves teamwork is do not under any circumstances fight the hunter alone unless you are the last person alive, because the Night Hunter, not only does he gain more resistance to damage, he also gains more resistance to UV lights. Your UV light also drains a lot faster, and to top it all off, his spits recharge a lot faster, so he can spit at you a lot more times than you have time to react. So you must be careful when you're fighting the hunter alone, because 9 times out of 10 he will immediately kill you, and you wouldn't have any chance facing against him alone, especially in a 1v4. In a 1v2 you would stand a chance, but 1v3 and 1v4 you have almost zero chance facing him alone. Now the next tip I'm going to talk to you about is predictability. Now, it's really important that you want to try to call out any common moves that the hunter does. For example, one of the most common moves that a lot of hunters seem to do is when you evade their tackle, 9 times out of 10 they would either follow up with a ground pound or they would spit. For example, right here, I evade the tackle. I try to go in for a slice, but he ends up ground pounding me away so that he can escape easily. However, one of the ways to counter this move is as soon as you evade the tackle, you just have to back away from them rather than having to go for a slice if you know he's going to go for a ground pound or a spit. So for example, I get tackled here, but instead of going for a slice, I back away. Now, I did get hit there, but 9 times out of 10, that ground pound wouldn't land due to you being in the air. Another common move that you will see among hunters is they ground pound you off of a roof and they immediately follow up with a tackle. 9 times out of 10 that move could kill you, but in this case, since I'm not close enough to the ground, I was able to survive it. There are 2 different ways you can counter this move. One of which is to evade the ground pound before the ground pound even lands. So that way the hunter is stunned for a few moments. And then you can grapple back and immediately follow up with a slice attack. However, if you cannot avoid the ground pound and you manage to get hit by it, you can perform a grapple cancel like I mentioned earlier to dodge the tackle midair. Like so. And now the next tip is actually going to be a tip from good players such as myself. Now, I wouldn't say I don't claim to be the greatest or anything. I'd say I'm above average at best. So the first tip I'm going to talk to you about is the goal of the game. Now, the main goal of the game isn't to actually kill the hunter as many times as you can. The main goal of the game is to destroy all of the nests. Now, if you're put in a situation where you get the hunter really low, but then the hunter runs away from you, do not chase after him. Instead, use this time to get as close to the nest as you possibly can while he's off healing, because you don't want to follow him and potentially put yourself in a worse situation than you are in now, because his spits would have recharged. He would have recharged more spits, or he would use this to lure you into a spot where you can be you can't fight him as well as you would in a spot that you can fight him in. The next piece of advice is pressure. Now, any damage dealt to the hunter applies a lot of pressure into them, and because of this, it's better to keep on slicing when the hunter is jumping or tendriling around you. For example, a lot of times hunters would try to tendril sprint towards you. Use this to slice. Even if you miss, it's better that you've tried rather than having to give him no pressure when he's jumping around you. Use this to put pressure on him by slicing him, so that when he gets low enough, he'll run away to try to heal. And once again, use this time to run towards the nest. Do not chase after the hunter. Now, the last sub tip in this category is backsliding. Now, I was a bit hesitant on adding this because it isn't exactly a feature in the game, but basically you're able to, the slide mechanic, where you can slide when you're sprinting and you hit circle, or you hit the crouch button, it lets you slide. You can actually do that while going backwards. Now, the way to do it on a controller is to point the stick back while you press the jump button to do the dodge, and then immediately point the stick forward and then hit the sprint button and then crouch. It may seem like a complicated combination, but I assure you that once you get used to this thing is be a very devastating move to be able to do on the hunter, because not only does it allow you to retreat from the hunter when you're in a desperate situation, it also allows you to dodge hit most of his attacks, such as a ground pound, for example. And by the way, if you're wondering how to do this on the PC, you just hold S and then spacebar, and then immediately hit C, W, and Shift all at once. Now, the last tip on this list, well, it isn't exactly a tip, but it's more like a favor that from a guy who's played this game for a long time. Sportsmanship. Now, while it's frustrating to lose a game, guys. Don't take it personally. It's just a game, guys. And just be nice to each other. Just say, like, I don't know, say GG at the end of every game. Like, try to be nice to the other players. Just because they're the ones who won the game does not mean that it's the end of the world. All right, because there's always another match. But I will say though, any person who uses the following: crash items, banned items, mod menus, though, it really depends. Like, if you're mainly using a mod menu, like for example, I have one here. If you're mainly using it just to give yourself ammo or give yourself items, in my opinion at least, that doesn't really count as abusing it. However, if you are using it to reset your character when you get pounced or when you get downed, that's not a good sportsmanship. It really isn't, because any person who isn't good at good sportsmanship don't deserve to be alive. Well, that's it. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you do, a thumbs up would be nice. Subscribe if you are new, and without further ado, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.